And you don't just read a book about getting in shape and get in shape. No,
Right.
you got to do the work, whether it's going to the gym or doing it outdoors, however way you exercise your muscles. And we have many muscle groups. I mean, you have muscle groups everywhere in your body. So
Yep.
the same with spiritual intelligence. You have all these qualities. You don't just develop them overnight in one shot, but you practice, you develop them.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stephenson, the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our mission is to empower you to live your best audacious life ever. Each week, we dive into the realms of personal growth and leadership and the unique gifts that make you who you are. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and I want to extend my heartfelt appreciation for you taking time out of your day to be here with us. Now, I want you to picture life as a grand orchestra. Each of us plays a distinct instrument, contributing our unique melodies to a beautiful symphony. In this episode, we explore key themes that will help harmonize your life's music. Spiritual intelligence, which is the ability to embody profound qualities like purpose, service, trust, and gratitude, unique gifts that each of us brings as individuals to the table, enhancing both personal and organizational success. Gratitude practice, which not only boosts our well-being, but it fortifies relationships and motivates teams, and the importance of presence and mindfulness, essential ingredients for effective leadership and fulfilling connections. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Yosi Amram. He's a thought leader in the field of spiritual intelligence and leadership. Yosi has a rich background in engineering and business. He's also dedicated his life to understanding the intersection of spirituality and practical leadership. His mission is quite clear. It's to help individuals and organizations, unlock their potential through the cultivation of spiritual intelligence, thereby creating a more harmonious and effective workplace. Yosi's insights are incredibly relevant to our discussion today, as he draws from his extensive research and personal experiences to illuminate how integrating spiritual intelligence can transform leadership and foster a culture of appreciation and presence within teams. It's a great conversation that I'm certain that you'll all appreciate. So without any further ado, let's turn to our chat with Yosi. Enjoy. Greetings, Yosi. Thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here, my friend.
Thank you, Audley. I'm excited to see what audacious conversation we might have.
Hey, I think being open is key into whatever comes our way, and so and it's interesting. I say that jokingly, but I mean that really is a key for life, right? And just being open. There's so much that happens in our day to day that we have zero control over, and being accepting of what comes our way and managing that accordingly. I think it is one of the if I were to talk about some keys to being successful in life, I think that'd be one of them.
I'm completely with you. And I think, we're each given a unique life, a unique gift, a unique set of talents and gifts and superpowers. And, some of us or many of us are shy to really express it. We want approval and so on. So to live an audacious life, it requires the courage to be our unique, authentic self and express our gifts and live our purpose, live the reason we were given these gifts by life, so that fulfills us. We
Yes.
actualize our own potential, and we use that to serve others, and we set a role model for living to the fullness and serving life and serving those who come in contact with us.
You are on the perfect podcast, my friend. There's no question about that. Much time is spent here talking about that best audacious life and in the fullness of all of that. And I think a really important key in that is recognizing and understanding that each of us are on our own individual path. My journey is my own, which means the rewards and the spoils also belong to me. We can look to others and maybe see what they're doing. Maybe we can learn from them, what we can glean that can help us on our own journey. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what's mine is mine, and you'll see what's yours is yours. And that's where that's why I have to be very, very careful when it comes to comparison, right? Because that will lead us down a path that also isn't our own too if we're not careful.
Yeah, no, it's beautifully said. But if I may, I'm
Yeah.
going to just add to it, which is I think that's a super important piece, what you're talking about it. I'm wholeheartedly behind it. But I think that's only part of the picture. The other part of the picture is, yeah, we are our unique selves and we have to live our unique self, but we got to do it in harmony with the greater whole. So the way I think about it is each of us are giving a unique instrument by life, a unique musical instrument and a score sheet that's individual to us. But we are part of a symphony and we play
Love,
around with
love
other
that.
individuals who are playing their instruments. And if we just focus on, I got to be me, which is
Yep.
super important, and then we feel disconnected and alienated, which is a epidemic that's plaguing our society. So what we need to do is work this paradox. I got to
Yes.
be me, and I
Hmm.
got to be part of this greater whole that I'm
Yep.
embedded in, the web of life.
The
And
orchestra.
that, yeah, the orchestra, and that's when
Yeah.
we play the beautiful symphony with
I love it.
everybody. And that's what I talk about spiritual intelligence. So we gotta be inner directed, connected in our essence, in our core, in our depth of our being, whatever you want to call that, essence, soul, spirit. But
Hmm.
then we got to be interconnected and not through comparison, but by understanding our shared humanity. And
Yes.
we're all come through the same life force. And then
Yes.
so I have interconnected and interconnected with you in this moment, and then ultra connected, connected to the
Yes.
transcendent dimension and the sacred dimension of life. And
Mm.
that's my greatest power. And
Mm.
that gives me the greatest power, audacity, strength, courage, all these things to express that unique self that I am.
Yes.
But I am tapping into the power of the community I am part of humanity, part of the web of life. And that
Yes.
both expresses my individuality and my community, my belonging.
Yes, yes, yes. Yossi, I would love for an opportunity to give you an opportunity to give our listeners insight into you, your work, and obviously, again, like I mentioned, for the second time, we will reference your book, Spiritually Intelligent Leadership. But let's introduce yourself to our audience, let them know about your work that you do and what's got you to the point that you're at now.
Okay, how many days and hours do we have on?
Whatever you feel is appropriate. How's that? Remember, I was given the invitation to stop you when necessary, right? So don't worry about
Yeah, all right, great. Yeah, you're giving me enough rope to hang myself. I love it.
that.
And so yeah, I'll try and tell my kind of my journey, which got me to this point. I mean, it may seem unrelated, but hopefully, we live our lives looking forward, but we make sense of it looking back. And so I'm gonna try and look back. So I was born and raised in Israel, war-torn part of the world. And like all young men, at age 18, I was drafted into mandatory 3-year service, despite my pacifistic leanings and so on. Um, Fortunately, it was peaceful time then, unlike the horrific things going on in that part of the world right now. And I was a shy math and science nerd, if you will. And but to my surprise, I had the fastest promotion record in the history of my regiment and won all these leadership awards. So the military really chafed on my soul. And, we're talking here about the freedom to be ourselves and our unique selves. And that's not what the military encourages. It's a
Right,
command and control model.
right.
And, it's necessary in battle. You don't have time for each person to express themselves. You got to work together and somebody calls the
Yes.
shot and so on. But, so it really chafed at my soul at that level. On the other side, though, the military is great at creating a cohesion in giving you a sense that your life depends on your friends, your teammates, your comrades, your fellow soldiers. So it creates a bonded experience. And it's this tension between our individuality and our belonging and a sense of unity with something bigger than us that is really our true power. And that dichotomy and that tension kind of became the guiding light for my aspiration to someday be an entrepreneur and build an organization and a company that brings out the best in people. And that led me to come to the US and study engineering and business and ultimately becoming an entrepreneur. And I started my first company was called Individual Inc., which is the first company to produce personalized newspapers. This is in the late 80s, early 90s,
Right.
before the internet. You may remember fax machines. Most
Yes.
people these days don't.
Yeah.
But you'd get Audley's morning newspaper uniquely tailored to you on your fax machine. And you would
Wow.
tell our self-learning agents, this is before we use the words AI, but it has self-learning. You tell it which articles were relevant or not, and it would individualize the news to be personalized to you. So the name individual stood for a concept for supporting the uniqueness of each individual and the uniqueness of our individual employees and bringing them together in a team spirit community environment. So I felt really passionate about that company, and I was working 70, 80 hours a week to build it. And I raised money from corporate partners like Microsoft and the top venture capitalists. And then the internet came. And the internet represented a big opportunity, but it was a huge threat at the time because everything we were doing selling these subscriptions was going to become free on the internet and ad supported. And I could see the writing on the wall. So I kind of panicked and I didn't know how to transition our business. And I got depressed and I just had wanted to hide. I couldn't stand in front of my 100, 150, I forget how many we had at that time, employees, and tell them how we're going to keep growing when we got this big threat and we have to move to this new world, but we got this revenue stream and so on. So I got depressed, but I persisted. We figured out a strategy. We became a hot internet company. I took the company public. I was worth millions and so on. And I was running around like crazy trying to capitalize on this new opportunity. And one day I was trying to relax and get a deep tissue massage.
Okay.
And as I was relaxing, my ego dissolved. And all of a sudden, I experienced this sense of oneness. Like my body is made of consciousness. Everything is made of this one field of consciousness. And I was looking through the face cradle, and the floor looked like it was in me. And it just blew my mind. I just never really experienced anything like it. So I blew my circuits, and it threw me into a manic episode. And that was really difficult because trying to run a public company and navigate it and so on while being in a manic episode was a disaster. And so my board passed a resolution to put me on a voluntary leave of absence, nothing voluntary about it. They said, go take 90 days and chill out and then come back and then you can run the company. And I was so self-absorbed, like, no way in heck. And so I fought them. I resigned, they fired me, etc. And I got all these headline stories in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, like how Yosi was unstable, our stock price collapsed. And it was a big trauma. It was a lot of shame because everybody shunned me. I became, I was canceled before the term canceled was there. Nobody
Cancel
was.
culture, before cancel culture was created.
So that was very painful and traumatic, but that led to a change in my life. I tried to go inward, understand what happened. Why did I get so burned out? Why did I get so identified with the business? What was this spiritual awakening? Was it real? Was it delusion? Was it psychotic? And that got me to go back to school and study psychology and spirituality. And that got me to discover this term, spiritual intelligence. I knew about emotional intelligence. I was like, oh, that would be a great parallel. So I did all this research to define what is spiritual intelligence, because while the term was out there, nobody really defined it, operationalized it, and I wanted to study it scientifically. So I had to figure out how to measure it. And so I developed the first academically validated measure, and then showed that leaders with higher spiritual intelligence lead teams with greater morale, higher commitment, and lower turnover, even when you control for emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence were synergistic and multiplicative. I'll pause there. I could say a lot more.
Well, I was going to actually ask you if you wouldn't mind sort of defining spiritual intelligence for our listeners. Many are familiar with emotional intelligence. I wonder if you can make the definition just so level set everyone, if you will.
Yeah, great. So let's just say, what is emotional intelligence, just to kind of cover the basis. People heard it, but I just would like to define it, and then from there clarify how it relates to spiritual intelligence. So emotional intelligence was a concept put forth by two academicians in 1990, who basically said emotional intelligence is the ability to be aware of and draw on emotional resources to help our functioning and well-being in daily life. Up until then, we thought that emotion and reason are in conflict. So if I ask you, hey, do you know people in your life that are emotional? And you think of some people, it may not be the greatest compliment. They may be prone to a lot of drama, etc. But if I said, you know, people that are emotional intelligence, like, you think maybe of a different set of people. So it kind of bridged the dichotomy between emotion and reason. But what it is the ability to be aware of and draw on emotional resources.
Right.
So spiritual intelligence, by analogy, parallel, it is the ability to be aware of, draw on, and embody spiritual resources and qualities.
Okay.
So what are those spiritual resources and qualities? That's the next question. So these are the qualities that are hailed by all the world's traditions. So in my research, I interviewed 71 teachers across all the traditions, from Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, shamanism. So, and they all have very different theologies and language, whether you believe Muhammad was the final prophet, or Jesus was the Messiah, or there's the Buddha was enlightened, or, you know, Father Sky, Mother Earth, like they talk in native traditions. You know, so they have very different theologies, different cosmologies, different metaphysics, but they all agree on these virtues: purpose, service, trust, gratitude, forgiveness, compassion, integrity, humility. So these are spiritual qualities and resources, and the ability to draw on them and embody them in daily life is what spiritual intelligence is. So just two more words on that.
I was gonna say, as you gave that list, I'm hearing leadership qualities. It's qualities that leaders use to have impact on the people that they're leading.
Yeah, and we're all leaders in a way. You know, we're all influencing the people in our communities and our families. Great. So I'll come back to that point about leadership and how, because yeah, so let me just say exactly to relate to that and differentiate. So spiritual intelligence is not spiritual belief. I can believe in God, I can believe in reincarnation, I can believe in angels, whatever. I can have a spiritual experience. I can go to church on Sunday and pray. I can walk in the forest and feel one with nature. Those are beautiful, powerful spiritual experiences, beliefs, whatever. But spiritual intelligence is like how I embody these qualities in a team meeting. Do I come from an ego where I'm trying to prove myself right, comparing myself to others, creating a toxic environment of politics, versus do I, try and do the right thing? When I'm driving on the freeway, do I feel like I'm in this metal box, like a car, like a tank, and we got all these people coming, getting on and off the freeway, and it's a dog eat dog world, versus like, no, we're all human beings. We're trying to get somewhere to work or home, and I feel connected. And then I'm more kind, more gentle in my driving. And, when I'm in line in the supermarket, how do I relate to the cashier or to the person in front of me who is slow? So those are the qualities of spiritual intelligence. Now I'll come back to your point. So
Yeah.
what's exciting is for thousands of years, we've had these spiritual traditions for millennia. All these traditions I named have been around for thousands of years.
Right.
And they spoke of these virtues. Now, in modern times, we have this thing called positive psychology, which is a new field that emerged in the last 20, 30 years with Marty Seligman and others. And they developed the character strengths inventory and values in action. And they have
Okay.
24 qualities. And in my model of spiritual intelligence, there's 22 qualities. Over half the qualities of spiritual intelligence map directly into positive psychology coming
Right.
in from modern scientific perspective. And
Hmm.
then you brought in this other piece, leadership. So there's leadership theory, and one of the top management consulting companies in the world, Bain and Company, did a study and looked at what qualities make for leadership and what happens when people feel inspired in their work versus
Mm.
when they just working to do the minimum to get a paycheck. And what they found that people that are inspired are twice as productive as people just getting by. And what were the qualities that led to people feeling inspired? They were the same qualities. So, service orientation, purpose, compassion, listening, being centered, humble, and so on. So, exactly. So now you have these ancient traditions for
Yep.
thousands of years talking about these virtues. You have positive psychology saying these are character strengths. And then you have leadership development saying these are the things. We want leaders with integrity, with a sense of purpose, that are servant leaders and are present and mindful and caring and
Yep.
egoless. So I'm
Yep.
just reinforcing and elaborating what you're saying.
And what I find interesting as you sort of talk about all those different traits, so for example, if you like everyone has, I would say the average person, everyone has, their favorite leader, if you will, or the one that inspired them or made the biggest impact. Kind of like your favorite teacher, right? Everyone's got that
Uh-huh.
favorite leader. And
Yeah.
if you ask people, hey, to identify your favorite leader, they will say, yeah, it was so and so. The follow-up question is, what did you like about them? What did you appreciate? What was it that they did? More, a large number of those individuals will list many of the qualities that we just talked about here a moment ago, right? And what that speak and those things aren't these big, grandiose, swooping actions that are changing the world, if you will. And from that perspective, they can change, my immediate circle, if you will, because it has a difference, it has an impact on me. And so, really, what that speaks to is something that you said earlier is that we all are leaders. We all have the ability to make a difference and impact others through those small, minute actions.
Yeah, no, great. And I use this always with my coaching and my client in the book. I do exactly the exercise you just said. Who are the leaders you admired? What about them drew you to them? And then, okay, these are their qualities. Okay, now we all contain these qualities to some measure. So it's not like, if I value integrity in other people, if I value a sense of purpose in other people, if I value compassion in others, I'm already to some extent, have my sense of purpose. Maybe it's not refined. I have my compassion. I have my, I know how to practice forgiveness. I've seen the benefit of doing that in my life. So we're just talking about building those muscles. Like, if you
Mm,
want to be in shape, we have our muscles. They may be a little weak. And you don't just read a book about getting in shape and get in shape. No,
right.
you gotta do the work, whether it's going to the gym or doing it outdoors, however way you exercise your muscles. And we have many muscle groups. I mean, you have muscle groups everywhere in your body. So
Yep.
the same with spiritual intelligence. You have all these qualities. You don't just develop them overnight in one shot, but you practice, you develop them. Now, what is interesting is, and why I call it spiritual intelligence, it's not just a disparate set of qualities that don't relate to each other, is because they all are uniform and universal across all the spiritual traditions.
Hmm.
And two, they naturally emerge when we connect to our essence, to our life force, to our spirit. Spirit comes from Latin, the
Yeah.
animating breath of life. So when we are connected to our life force, which we all share, the
Yeah.
same life force, these qualities naturally start to awaken. So that's why it relates to spiritual intelligence. And what it says is that there's no dichotomy between the spiritual and the practical, just like there doesn't need to be a dichotomy between the emotional and the reasonable. So
Hmm.
spiritual intelligence, we normally think spiritual is like woo woo. Okay, it's nice. I go to church on Sunday.
Right.
I
Right.
meditate twice a week, whatever. But spiritual intelligence says, no, this is super practical, because when you connect to these energies and embody these qualities, you have a more fulfilling life. You have the
Mhm.
courage,
Yes.
you find your unique gifts and you learn to express them, and then you live an
Yes.
audacious life
Yes.
that there's
Yes.
nobody else who lives this life. It's unique to you. And
Yes.
14 billion years of the history of the universe, there's never been another Audley, like you, that has his gifts and is doing the work he's doing and bringing
Mhm.
his gifts to the world. So
Yeah. No, no, I love the take on that. And I think you're absolutely correct in terms of the things that you do to get on that pathway of that audacious life. And so I think I'm in full agreement. You'll see that's for certain. Let's jump into your book. I mentioned I've referenced a couple of times spiritually intelligent leadership. What made you write it?
well, it just feels like we live in a world that is facing some major crises, and there's a big gap in leadership. I mean, as humanity, we have mastered and developed our cognitive intelligence, our IQ, and it has landed us on the moon. We've split the atom, we deciphered the genome. Now we've got AI that's smarter than many of us, like including myself. So we got the IQ piece, we
Yep.
understand that. And then we have this emotional intelligence. We're learning to be aware of our emotions and be more empathic and so on, all very important. But yeah, you look at the world and you've got, some major crises.
Yep.
And what
That's
I'm
right.
saying is we're facing, I think, a leadership crisis at many
Mhm.
levels. And as humanity, we have really, you know, leveraged and developed our cognitive intelligence. And with our cognitive intelligence, we landed on the moon, we deciphered the genome, we split the
Right.
atom, we developed AI that's smarter than many of us, like including myself. And then we developed and understood emotional intelligence, and we're aware of our emotions more, and we can empathically connect with people. But at the same time, we have all these major problems, like there's anxiety and depression rates that are soaring, substance abuse, addiction, suicide rates, a loneliness epidemic that we're all facing. Um, and then there's global other bigger problems like environmental issues, political polarization, wars, etc. So there's something missing from the
Mhm.
EQ and IQ. And I think the missing piece is spiritual intelligence and spiritually intelligent leaders that can mobilize and unite us to bring us together to address these bigger problems. People are talking about the meta crisis,
Right.
and so that's kind of why I feel this book is needed, and it's needed at multiple levels. So I see it with corporate leaders that I work with. My practice, I've coached over 100 CEOs, and many of them have built companies into billions of dollars, thousands of employees, and they have, people think, okay, spiritual intelligence, how does it relate to being religious? Do I need to be religious? And or spiritual? And the answer is really not. And over my 100 plus CEOs that I've coached, they've ranged all over the spectrum, from
Mhm.
people that were devout religious practitioners in one tradition to people that were quote unquote spiritual but not religious,
Mhm.
to people that were agnostic, to people that were atheist or devout atheists. But you can be an atheist and not believe in anything spiritual, but you could still have a purpose and lead as a servant leader, embody hope and trust and gratitude and presence and humility. So you could develop your spiritual intelligence, regardless of your spiritual religious beliefs and or their lack thereof. And so
Right.
I think we need this meaning. We need to connect to our depth. We need to express our unique self and live the life only we can live. But we
Yes.
got to do it in harmony with our environment, and that goes back to this metaphor. So we're given this unique instrument, and
Yep.
we want to play it. Only we can master our unique instrument,
Right.
and we got to master it in a way that plays beautiful music as a symphony.
That's right. That's right. There's the idea of being again in unison with everyone else, and I think it's a fine balance, right? Because it's very easy to kind of go off on your own and hey, I'm a soloist, I'm gonna do my thing. But collectively, if we're talking about sort of moving forward as a society, it's got to be done together, not just one person.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if I'm just like gonna adopt the attitude, well, this is my truth, and you hear it sometimes. This is my truth, and they use foul language and offensive and whatever, but this is my truth. Well, I don't think that's like you said, that's half the thing. You got to be courageous to speak the truth, but I say, do it in a kind way that keeps us connected.
And that's exactly it. I mean, if my truth is offensive to someone else, right? I've got to look at that. We got to figure out how because we're here to coexist. We're not living in silos by ourselves, or we're not alone here. And so, and I think there is still a way for you to live your truth, but still live in harmony and unison with other people.
Exactly. And that's a skill and art form that we have to do. I mean, I can play my instrument in isolation in my closed room, and, it may be nice music. But now, if I'm going to play this instrument in a band or a thing, then I got to develop other skills. Not only how do I play my instrument, but how do I listen and harmonize it? And
Yeah.
the thing is, it's actually to my benefit. If I just live my truth in a way that's offensive and harmful to others, it actually alienates me and it contributes
Yeah.
to my sense of isolation, and I am against other people and society and the whole world. And that doesn't really feel good.
Right.
And
Right.
so, but when I learn how to express my truth in a way that's kind and connected, then I have better relationships. I have more kindness and more love and more
Yep.
connection with people around me. And that's good for me. It's not
Yeah.
like it's some kind of self-sacrifice
No,
that,
no, no, not at all. Not at all. So here's what I'm really curious about, Yossi, is with all the CEOs that you've coached, I'm curious about common challenges that you've seen. So part A, and then the other part of that question is how has spiritual intelligence addressed those challenges?
well, a lot of the challenges are, the same human challenges we all face. It's like, am I doing it to seek approval from others, covering up for shame underneath it all, versus like it's coming from an authentic place that calls me forth. So finding my purpose and my life's unique gift and lining it up with the mission of the organization, because when I do that, I'm aligned. And
Yes.
when I'm aligned and I'm passionate, then there's harmonization between my individual purpose and the purpose of the team or the group or the organization, the company. So, finding our unique gifts, identifying them, saying, this is why I'm on earth, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm called to do, and this is how it contributes. So, whether it's at the CEO level or whether I'm a team lead for mechanics at an airline, and my as a team lead for mechanics at an airline, my gift is my craftsmanship, and I like to fix things. and I like to work with my hands or whatever and solve problems. Now, if I could do that and then at the same time line it up to, okay, if I do that well, I'm helping the airline and the passengers have on-time departures and safe air travels. So I can find a way that my gifts contribute to something bigger than myself. And it doesn't have to be at the CEO level.
Right.
It could be someone in the finance department whose gifts are with numbers and modeling, and they want to figure out the best optimal routes and pricing and whatever, and empowering the airline and the management to offer the best service. So it could be at any level. So I'm just going off. I'm just saying that the same challenges that CEOs face, the
Yep.
same channels that all we face, and the challenge, particularly for CEOs, is that you're in power. And, as they say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So as you become successful and whatever, it's easy for our egos to get hooked in. And then we lose, and you see that with people that start out with humble beginnings and they work
Yes.
hard and they're humble, and then they rise to power, and then their egos get in the way, and and you could see it. It just
Yeah.
and it's
You
sad.
don't recognize them anymore. Like, who is that person now, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a big challenge. The big challenge that we all face is presence. These
Mm.
days there's so much competition for our attention.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And what happened yesterday? I go into a meeting, I'm thinking about yesterday, I'm thinking about what I want to do tomorrow, lunch I'm gonna have soon, or my dinner date tonight, whatever it is that distracts us. So whether you're a CEO, especially when you have a lot competing for your attention, but this quality of presence is so important in our relationships, not only at work, but with our family and intimate partners and friends. We're so distracted as a culture, and we're doing ourselves a disservice.
Yeah.
And the quality of our interactions are so poor as a result.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
just throwing a few thing. And of
Yeah.
course, the other thing is our brain's negativity bias. We all have this. So we're born into this world with a brain that's designed to alert us to danger, and that keeps us safe in the jungle and so
Yep.
on. But it puts us in chronic stress with adrenaline and cortisol, which burns
Yes.
us out. And so we have to work hard to do the opposite and practice gratitude and appreciation. And we know as leaders, when we can appreciate people around us and the team, it motivates us. But we are high achievers. We want to accomplish a lot, and we're always focusing on the glass is half empty and what's missing and criticizing. So that's a huge challenge I see with high achievers that become the CEOs, become the entrepreneurs,
Yep.
how to cultivate that gratitude and appreciation, which is good for our health and good for the morale and good for the
Yep.
ultimate performance.
And there is a part, like, I mean, as these, you talk about these high achievers come into these leadership roles, and they want to perform at that high level, like they want to do what they've always done. And I say, well, where they've got to be careful is it's not about me, right, and what I need to do. It's collectively what I'm doing, what we're collectively doing. But I think the trap many get into is they're thinking about me, and I want to maybe look like a certain way, a certain type of leader. I want to be the one to have credit for, getting us to a better place as an organization. So there's all sorts of things that come into play that I think leaders need to be mindful of. That's not, especially the part about not being about me. Like, that's the one.
Yeah, well, you're just talking about, being humble and egoless. And egoless and humble is not about being meek. It's not about me. So I think one wise person, I forget who it was, I think it might have been C.S. Lewis, said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, is thinking of yourself less. You know what I'm saying? So it's not thinking that I am less than, I'm just not focusing on myself, focusing on the goal, the vision, the mission, and dedicating myself to that and not trying to be the hero. But when we do that, we are the heroes, but it's not why we're doing it.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if you had any advice. Maybe there's an emerging leader that's looking to integrate spirituality into their practice, or any suggestions or anything that you'd recommend.
Well, okay, that's a setup question. Buy my book, do the exercise.
Okay, so
No, but okay, putting aside my commercial, which I hope you'll forgive me.
no, no,
Uh,
that's fine. That's what we're here for. So putting aside, so we're being humble and egoless. Now what?
that was a little bit my ego, right? You got to get a little humble myself. I watch my ego all the time, so I'm
Sure,
not done. I'm on the journey like everybody else. But
absolutely.
no, I think we're talking about some of the things. One is find your sit down and reflect. What are my unique gifts? What are my talents as a human being? What was I born into this earth to fulfill? And some of us are, have a great sense of humor, and then maybe I need to become a comedian, and maybe some of us are born with great talent for mathematics and I'm programming and I'm going to become a software engineer, and someone else has a great eye for graphic design and whatever. Someone else is really good with words and I'm a writer and an editor. So what am I really good at? What has life gifted me that is my superpower? And then how can I actualize them to contribute to the world around me? So this is what, the Japanese ikigai essentially says reason of being, and which is when you could get the convergence between what I love to do, what I'm good at, and what the world needs. And that's a deep question we each have to reflect on. What am I good at? What were my gifts? You know, and naturally when I use them, I'm gonna have a sense of mastery. It's gonna feel good. Like for example, I may enjoy telling jokes, okay? And but I'm not particularly good at it. So, so that's not going to be my calling. Or I enjoy singing. And, my kids used to say, "Hey, Dad, please stop because it doesn't sound so good." So, so anyway, so the point is, I got to find the things that I'm good at
Right.
naturally and then I enjoy, and then
Mhm.
figure out how I can use that to contribute. And that defines my purpose. And then I want to find an organization or a mission that lines up my personal purpose with the greater purpose. And then I feel aligned, I feel empowered, I feel called to do that. So that would be one place to start. The other
Mhm.
place is practice gratitude. Gratitude we know is so good to our mood and health and
Yes,
quality
yes.
of sleep and well-being and our immune system. So, at the end of each day, do a little gratitude practice before you go to bed. And then as you start to build a habit around it, go through your day looking for moments of gratitude and appreciation. Oh, I really appreciate how you showed up in this meeting. I really appreciate how this report you produce. And share that gratitude and appreciation with other people around you, whether at work or in your family. I mean, the research says that, healthy relationships, have a 3 or 5 to 1 appreciation compared to criticism. Because when we appreciate people, then when we give them a constructive criticism, they take it seriously. It's not
Right.
like criticize all the time, at which point they start filtering you out. So if you want your criticism to be effective, build people up with your appreciation. So practice that. That will draw people to you as a leader. They'll feel like, okay, yeah, I want to be appreciated. Everybody wants to be appreciated. So it motivates them to stretch and deliver more, and then you
Mm.
appreciate them. So those are two places to start. Find your purpose,
Yeah.
practice gratitude and appreciation. We can go on and on. I mean, there's
Well, I was
20.
gonna say, let's not forget the final one, which is your book. Where can we send listeners to get a copy of your book there? You'll see.
Well, they can get it on pretty much any place, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any place books are available. It's available in hard copy, in electronic, as an audiobook. You can tune into my YouTube channel. I have free videos. It's just Awakening Spiritual Intelligence, one word. I have a nonprofit, awakeningspiritualintelligence.org. I host free events for cultivating particular qualities each month, or for short, Awakening SI, short for spiritualintelligence.org. I have a website with my name, but most people won't know how to spell it, so it's yosiamram.net. So just remember awakeningspiritualintelligence.org, or as a YouTube channel. Go to Amazon or anywhere and search for Spiritually Intelligent Leadership. You'll get the book. And yeah.
Well, we'll make sure that we in the show notes, we'll put all those contact details and have people funnel to the right places to get more insights on you and your work. Yosi, thank you for doing this. This has been an awesome conversation. I really appreciate the education to spiritual intelligence. I think it is everything for many might be hearing it for the very first time. It's very enlightening, and that's really what we want to be able to do, is offer some insights and enlightenment to our listeners. And so thank you for being part of the process.
Thank you, Audley. It's been delightful, and I appreciate your presence here, your smile, your welcoming energy. So it's been delightful.
All the best, Yosi. Back we are here on the podcast. So much thanks, appreciation go to Yosi for being here. We explore the transformative power of spiritual intelligence. We delved into how embodying qualities such as gratitude and trust not only enhances our well-being, but also strengthens the fabric of our relationships, both personally and professionally. One key takeaway was the importance of being present. In a world filled with distractions, cultivating presence is essential for effective leadership and meaningful connections. What I personally loved about the interview with Yosi was his genuine passion for helping others discover their unique gifts and align them with their life's purpose. His insights challenge us to be more mindful and grateful while creating a ripple effect in our lives, as well as of the lives of those around us. I encourage you to connect with Yosi directly to learn more about his insight and his work, as well as his book. You can find all the contact details in the show notes below, along with the links to resources that he offers. I want to take this moment to thank you for tuning into another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, and share the value that you found in this conversation. And you can do so with family and friends. If you haven't already done so, your support helps us grow and reach even more listeners on their journey to live audaciously. Remember, the symphony of life is enriched when we play our unique instruments together. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love for one another, keep striving to your best audacious life.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stephenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.